10 movies based on real people. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and just as usual, we'll be diving right into another interesting topic detailing some of the most common movies that are based on real people. Often in the movie industries, during the movie creation process, filmmakers will take inspiration from real-life events that are particularly unique in filming. More often than not, movies are inspired by or even follow real-life events without calling attention. A number of items on this list are movies telling the fantastical or unusual tales of reality. You might be surprised to find that some of your favorite movies aren't entirely original ideas, but instead have been forged out of the true story of others. And with no eagerness kept waiting, let's start counting down the top movies you won't believe are based on real stories. Jaws. To kick off our list is Jaws, the 1975 Spielberg flick. I'm pretty sure you viewers are definitely familiar with the plot of the movie. In this movie, a small team of townsfolk are attempting to hunt and kill the great white shark that was terrorizing the town. You may know that, but what you might not know is that the movie is based on the series of shark attacks in 1916 on the coast of New Jersey, in which 4 people were killed in the span of about 2 weeks in summer. Although the behavior of the shark in the movie was exaggerated to heighten the drama of the film, it's still enough to conclude that movie and life are only a fold away from merging. The Hunt for Red October. Now, this one is strange because the general thoughts among most people is that the story the movie is purportedly connected to was a better version. So maybe the filmmakers missed out on an opportunity with this one. Tom Clancy's 1984 debut novel of the same name, The Hunt for Red October, sees Marco Ramius, a Soviet submarine captain, attempting to defect from the Soviet Union because of his lack of support for the use of nuclear weapons. Actually, based on the true story, Tom's book draws from the story of a ship called the Century, which was a Soviet boat that was involved in a mutiny by the ship's supervisory officer, Valery Sablin, who was attempting to attack Soviet leadership on the 7th of November 1975. Sablin seized the ship, locking the ship's crew in the wardroom with the plan of taking the ship from the Gulf of Riga into the Gulf of Finland to protest through TV and radio the corruption of the 1964-1982 era of the Soviet Union, also known as the Brezhnev era. He was planning to say a fairly commonly held view at the time that the authorities were dragging the country down through their continued corruption. Luckily, a junior officer escaped and radioed for assistance from the military, and the Century was critically damaged. Sablin was jailed and executed in the following year as a result of not wanting the news of Sablin's efforts to spread to Kremlin. 50 First Dates. 50 First Dates is an Adam Sandler film, one from earlier on in his career. But if you've never heard of it, don't worry, as we sure would tell you what it's about. This movie follows Henry, who meets a woman named Lucy, who he believes to be the girl of his dreams, as it just so happens that Lucy has short-term memory loss. She can't store new memories, and so she forgets him repeatedly. It's just like Dory from Finding Nemo, only in a far, far worse movie. The form of amnesia on display in 50 First Dates is actually real and is related to a real-life story. In 1985, Michelle was involved in a serious motorcycle accident, leaving her with some mental conditions which eventually developed into her amnesia condition. Her husband, Ian, who got married to her 3 years after her accident, said in an interview that it can be very frustrating for me, but I have to be patient and understand. I have to keep calm because I love her. I've known her for 25 years, so I'm lucky we met before she had the accident because she can remember me and everything about our marriage. Rocky. Number 4 on our list is Rocky, the story of the boxer Rocky Balboa, played by Sylvester Stallone, who gets the opportunity to take on the world heavyweight champion Apollo Creed in a brutal and intense punch-out. You might be surprised that both the characters Rocky and Apollo were based on Chuck Wepner and Muhammad Ali respectively. Even Rocky's exhibition match against wrestler Thunderlips, played by Hulk Hogan in Rocky III, was based on a scripted fight weapon Chuck had against Andre the Giant in 1976. Spring Breakers. In this movie, James Franco based his portrayal on an obscure Florida rapper and human cartoon named Ralph. But if by chance you were following some not so popular news sites during the release of the movie, you'll know that another rapper by the name of Riff Raff thought he was the inspiration for Franco's shady main character, mostly because the character looks and speaks exactly like him. In fact, it's believed that the director had approached the Texan rapper about starring in the film before Franco got involved, but the logistics just never worked out, and so James Franco stepped into Riff Raff's shoes. And although Ralph was excited about Franco playing essentially a version of him, he still attempted to sue the director for sampling his life without permission. Dirty Harry. Now, this movie is based on the lead investigator in the Zodiac killings, and neither Dirty Harry nor Lieutenant Frank Bullitt's, arguably Clint Eastwood and Steve McQueen's most iconic characters, respectively, came up fully formed from the screenwriters' imaginations. Actually, the main concept for the first Dirty Harry movie wasn't even an original, but rather structured around the real-life Zodiac killer case. For those unfamiliar, the Zodiac was one of the world's biggest psychopaths in the late 60s and early 70s, who bragged via letters to various newspapers about all of the people he brutally murdered, and even sent a whole slew of cryptic clues to the police that should have led to his arrest. Dirty Harry followed a similar framework, swapping out the names while pretty much everything else stayed the same. Jabba the Hutt. Now, this might not be a movie, but it's worth mentioning. Known as a famous gangster in the Star Wars universe, this character was actually inspired by British actor Sidney Greenstreet, who made his living playing various miscreants in such masterpieces as Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon. Greenstreet was a big guy. In fact, he was so big that his credited character in The Maltese Falcon was the Fat Man. He also had an incredible knack for embodying seedy criminals who dabbled in slavery and smuggling. Professor X and Magneto. Now, these two characters from the X-Men series are based on Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. The X-Men series has always been one of the more overtly political comic books out there, and it's pretty apparent that the mutants are standing for the oppressed citizens of color that dealt with the same types of intolerance and hatred that Wolverine and his company have endured. Since then, the two primary leaders of the mutants, Professor X and Magneto, were modeled after the two biggest leaders in the civil rights movements. Both of these men sought to eradicate the injustices inflicted upon the marginalized members of society, though the means by which they fought differed greatly. Professor X chose to preach education and coexistence to his people, relaying many of the sentiments that Dr. King included in his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, while Magneto went a bit harsher in his tactics, advocating a sort of mutant supremacy. American Psycho. Remember Patrick Bateman from American Psycho? Well, he was based on Tom Cruise. It was revealed in a 2010 interview with author Brett Ellis that the titular psychopath from his novel American Psycho was based, at least in part, on his own hatred of consumerist culture and the tension he felt within himself for chasing after his version of the American dream for so many years. But when it came to portraying the Huey Lewis-loving madman on the big screen, Christian Bale decided to model his performance on the one and only Tom Cruise. Bale recalls discussing the Martian-like aspects of Bateman's personality with his director, specifically how the socially inept head case analyzed other people's interactions like an alien, trying to figure out how normal humans behave. According to Bale, that trait was very apparent in Tom Cruise, who had just been seen being interviewed by David Letterman. He noted a very intense friendliness with nothing behind the eyes, which fell in line perfectly with the vibe Bale wanted to create for his character. The upside. This movie is played by Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston. The story is about Philip, a wealthy quadriplegic who needs a caretaker to help him with his day-to-day routine in his New York penthouse. He decides to hire Dell, a struggling parolee who's trying to reconnect with his ex and his young son. Despite coming from two different worlds, an unlikely friendship starts to blossom as Dell and Philip rediscover the joy of living life to the fullest. Wow, what a sentimental way to end our list for today. This isn't all, as we are yet to scratch the surface off of. We've got more coming, and if you would love to know more, then ensure you give this video a thumbs up, tap on the subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. And don't forget, you can let us know which movie you might want to see next in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe everyone.